In Attack on Titan, the final season, Season 4, Part 3, I believe that Falco will be introduced to be the Bird Titan. And stick with me to find out exactly why I say this and all the evidence that's been laid out throughout the story. Now, a quick disclaimer before I do jump into it, that this is a theory. And this is a theory as an anime watcher. I don't read the manga. I have no idea what happens in the manga. It's not my business. This is just a theory after watching to the end of Season 4, Part 2. So that's where you probably should be if you don't want to be spoiled. Now, getting into all of this, I think a good place to start is this picture. Because this picture, on the surface, doesn't seem to have much significance, right? It just seems like one of those Ymir and Subjects of Ymir pictures. But the more you look at this, the more questions pop up from this picture. Because if the person in the middle is Ymir, and we assume that all the people bowing down are just the many subjects of Ymir, then who are these big ones, right? Are these the Titan shifters? Are these significant people? If they are the Titan shifters, then why do they look like this? None of the Titans look this human. Now, one person may say that, look, Titan shifters look slightly different over time, even in the series, but not this different, right? This different. They all look human here. Today, the Titans that we have don't look anything like this. Most of them don't even look that human. So, why do these ones all look so human and so regular? And this is the first step to answering the question. Now, in the history of Ymir, if we look at that and everything that, she went through and the whole chase, and she goes into this mysterious little cave hole thing, she falls in the water, and there's that thing that still has no answer yet. But that thing that's responsible for the Titans existing somehow seems to be connected to the idea of DNA, the fact that it exists as a long strand that attaches itself to the spine. And if it exists, connected to DNA and following in line with this scientific nature to Attack on Titan, because, everything seems to be just scientific and technological but a long time ago and not really magical, then we can naturally assume that there may be a hint of evolution required here. There may be a hint of something, of some progression in a sense, and not really magic. And if that's the case, then maybe there's some kind of evolution that happens with Titans over time. Now, moving down the line of evolution and why this occurs, I would say this is because of why it occurs when most people talk about evolution. The ideas of wants and needs. If an organism wants to live in a certain way, it will need to evolve and adapt to its situation in order to survive. And maybe this idea, expands even to Ymir herself, wanting to stomp her oppressors. Maybe that's the reason she created the Titans, the colossal Titans that formed the rumbling and the walls in the first place. Because a lot of that seems to be hinted towards, following the rules and following the king and following the royal blood. But this is not the first time Attack on Titan has led us down a road which later on we found out was somehow to mislead us, right? So maybe that is the idea. The idea came from Ymir herself wanting to evolve and stomp her enemies out and destroy all her enemies, and that's why she turned into a giant. Maybe if someone else encountered that organism, they would turn into something else, not a Titan. So there's a lot of mysteries around that, but the idea of evolution in a certain way seems to be heavily possible. But let's look at some of the clues that we've gotten as to why it will be the Bird Titan of all things, apart from some other kind of evolution, and why Falco and not anyone else. Now, the first reason I say a Bird Titan makes sense is because it fits the theme of freedom. A lot of times, not only for the Eldians, but for most people in the world, freedom and the ability to do whatever you want, the ability to feel safe is a very important thing. It's the major conflict in the series, and it fits nicely with everything that's going on. But looking at some of the more concrete clues in the series, we have the scout symbol, the symbol of feathers. Of all the animals to choose from, we choose the symbol that of the scouts that represents the hope of humanity within the walls. When the scouts were not doing well, the hope of humanity within the walls was kind of down. People just believed that staying in the walls was really what life was about. But as soon as the scouts started doing well, later on in season 3, we have people backing them, people sending them off with cheers and screaming and shouting for the first time. But that happens, and their symbol is the symbol of bird feathers. In the beginning of the story, Eren describes the walls as being like a cage, and although he means this in the sense of being livestock, you could also take this as a bird cage. And later on in season 4, even one of the endings of the anime alludes to Eren being trapped in some kind of cage and him seeking freedom. And all around there's just imagery of cages and bird silhouettes and him chasing after it. Finally, enter Falco, whose name is literally one letter away from a bird that we all know being the falcon. I don't know. I don't know what kind of I don't know how I didn't see this before, right? I don't know why it took me so long. But Falco and Falcon. And even when he's introduced, the first thing we see him doing in season 4, part 1, episode 1, it's crazy that I have to go through all of that just to tell you which episode. We see him reach out to the sky almost as if he's reaching out to one of the birds, telling it to run away. So Falco, name sounds like a bird, reaching out to a bird, and this is the first thing we see of him. And right again in the next episode, when all the generals from Marley are talking about the war and how technology is improving, we get the big question, which, spurred me on to think about this video, and that is, do we not have a flying titan?
羽の生えた巨人はいなかったか。
Why bring up that line if it's just going to be cast to the wayside? Why bring up the idea of a titan that's able to fly if it means nothing? And finally, the thing that sold it for me, sealed the deal in, is Falco's shifter. When he first turns into a titan, he looks just like any other human. Regular one, just the same as always. But the moment he eats Galliard and finally gets a shifter form and transformed for the first time at the harbor, we see his titan looks different. It doesn't look the same as it was before, and it also doesn't look like Galliard's one. It doesn't look like his brother, Portico's brother, I forgot his name, but it doesn't look like his brother, and it doesn't also look like Ymir. Instead, it has what seems like a beak, which someone could just look at as a different kind of jaw, but more than that, it has feathers. Not fur, but feathers. Different from the Beast Titan and different from every other Jaw Titan. And looking at this all together, maybe one of them is coincidence. Maybe one of them is just meant to be cast to the wayside as a fun thought of a flying titan. But the idea of a flying titan, the idea of freedom in the form of a bird, and the idea of a character who turns into a titan that has feathers, I think is pretty much confirmed that a bird titan is incoming. But now one of the most important questions is, why not Eren? Why not anyone else? Falco's barely done anything to earn him the right to become the bird titan. And I think that Eren is a very interesting one, because Eren, as much as he seeks freedom, is one of the worst people to then give this bird titan power to. Because Eren, as much as he seeks freedom, Eren as a character is not about himself being free. Eren at his core wishes for the people that he will leave behind when his term is over to be free. Even from the very moment he turned into a titan, he started helping his friends in trust. When they were about to shoot him and he was confused, all he could think about was Armin. All he could think about was Armin's dream to see the ocean when the choice came down between him and Erwin. Eren at his core is the attack titan. The titan that always pushes back. The titan that always seeks freedom for the purpose of others. The titan that never backs down. He's not the freedom titan. He's the attack titan. On the other hand, people like Reiner and the rest of them are this generation of people who turn into titans that are the generation that sacrifices themselves. They're the generation that puts everything on the line, that makes sure that the people who come after them don't have to fight the same war. And Falco, on the other hand, represents this younger generation, this one that's being brought up after everyone else, that's a bit more innocent, that sees past and has the privilege to look at things in a different light, that not all Marlians are bad, not all Eldians are good or bad, that people exist as individuals, and blaming people for the sins of, their relatives in the past doesn't make sense. And so Falco is in this unique position which allows him to make a good bird titan. But Anyway, that is the idea. The idea that wanting something so much could cause evolution, and maybe needing it to an extent is what is sometimes necessary to achieve evolution from one stage of a titan to another. And perhaps in the future we'll see other titan shifters that have evolved over time, and maybe not all of them looked the way they did and had transitionary stages, because even Ymir, when she transformed into a titan, didn't look like anything. But today we have titans in all shapes and sizes, and there must be a reason for that. And so, along with an explanation, I do expect to see a bird titan. Tell me what you think, and tell me, will you evolve into hitting the subscribe button and getting more of this feed, this good feed, into your feed? I don't know if that made sense, but I'm not going to redo it. Bye.